Welcome to the Intelligent Investing Podcast, where modern portfolio theory can suck it. A student of the School of Graham and Doddsville and a clergy member of the Church of Warren Buffett. Here's your host, Eric Schleien.
Hi, this is Eric Schleien. You're listening to the Intelligent Investing Podcast, and today we have on entrepreneur Alex Portelli. On this show, I like having business leaders as sometimes we talk about investment ideas. We've had a few people who run companies on the show too, and I love profiling people who have very interesting stories and up to really interesting things. And it's been a little while since we've had someone on like that. So, happy to have you on the show, Alex. Welcome.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, now you're in Las Vegas right now?
Yep, that's
okay.
Correct. I am now in Las Vegas.
So you've kind of been all over the place in your career, huh?
Yeah. Well, I just bought a house here and relocated here. I've been in Colorado for the last 5 years, as you know, but the climate there, not the weather, has changed a bit, and so I just see more opportunity out here.
Cool. So before we get into that, I think for the listeners, just tell us a little bit about, who you are, your background, kind of how you got started building businesses. Because you literally have built quite a few businesses and, pretty successful for, you're like 30 or something? How old are you?
Yep, just turned 30.
You're literally 30 years old, yeah. So you're not someone who just, talks the talk, but you walk the walk, and you have I would say you have very natural business street smarts. So, I'm looking forward to spending more time talking to you today. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm from Albany, New York, upstate New York. As you know, because I bring it up every so often, I don't really come from much of an educational background. I dropped out of Albany High School when I was 14, a few weeks into ninth grade.
And why did you drop out?
Because it was a very, very bad school system. A lot of violence, a lot of gang violence. School, it's just it's just very crummy. My class, for example, had a graduation rate, I think, of like 25-26%.
Wow. Is it still as bad today?
It seems like it, actually. Yeah. Sometimes I check out Albany News, but the whole upstate New York is very economically depressed.
No, it feels like I'm driving through a third world country sometimes.
Absolutely. It's
I'm in like Soviet controlled land or something like that. I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's very
people
sad.
still there. Yeah. Well, there's no opportunity. It's very expensive. Taxes are very high. Even like I look at a house, a property I'll have in Denver or Las Vegas, because that's what I do now, by the way. So I have real estate, a real estate portfolio. But you look at property taxes for let's say like a 4-bedroom or 5-bedroom 2,000 square foot property in Denver or Las Vegas. These are major metro areas. Your property tax, you're looking at around $1,000 for a year. Maybe $1,500, maybe even less than $1,000. In upstate New York, this isn't even New York City. Albany, New York, my parents, their house, it's 3 or 4 bedroom. They pay like $12,000, $13,000 a year in property tax alone. That's
wild.
Right, and this is Albany. So you've been to Albany, right?
Yeah, a few times. I went to a great diner there once.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So it's not like you're living in Manhattan or something. So it's New York has a lot of problems, and that trickles down because that discourages. Nobody who is going to, has a business or is going to invest in something is going to invest in upstate New York, where they're going to pay $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year in property taxes when they can get the same property for, $2,000 a year in property taxes. I think that's probably New York's one of their biggest problems that you really don't hear much about, honestly.
Yeah, but then with all due respect, though, cap rates are going to be higher, I would imagine, in Albany than New York City.
Right.
So there's going to be that trade-off.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I don't know what the property taxes are in the more close to the New York City metro area, but I imagine
they're still high.
Yeah, definitely. And then you're paying your income tax for New York is ridiculous. You're paying sales tax. I guess the sales tax, I don't know what the sales tax rate is actually. But yeah, overall, I mean, those costs add up. So it's very sad. But,
so anyway, you drop out of school.
Yep, dropped out of school. I went to work.
You're 14 when you drop out. You said.
Yep, 14.
And then what do you do from there?
Well, first, so I worked as a busboy at this really nice.
By the way, I just want to say too, it seems like the people I meet who are up to I'm not talking about really cool things, but doing really amazing things. They all have a really fucking interesting story. They've all gone through some kind of shit to get where they are.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's like the it reminds me of this. This is I think you'll get this analogy. Do you remember when you're in high school? I guess you weren't fully in high school, but you remember when it's you have the popular kids and the pretty girls, and then as you get older, as you get older, whether it's the football jocks or the cheerleaders, whatever, some of them, actually go do real work and become super successful and normal, whatever. But then there's those people that they kind of peaked in high school and it was they never had to do anything in their life. They just got by on their good athletic talent or, their pretty face or something. And then they're fucked. They're totally fucked. They haven't developed themselves, and there's something really there where if you have to really struggle to get some shit done, it really kind of sharpens the blade of how you do life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sitting at a desk for 20 to 25 years of your life, if you think about it, you're really, I don't think it's that healthy, and it's not really preparing you for
life.
Look,
to be fair, it depends on the desk. I'm sure there's plenty of desks that are great, but if you're in some 9-to-5 job where there's no level of critical thinking that you have to do, I don't know how you could even possibly start building and creating businesses when you literally have not trained your mind to think like that for 25, 30 years. It really can fuck you.
And even I don't know if you ever see me, or if I've brought it up, but even you look at the cost of public schools and the school system, if you just kind of do the math on how much tax money it costs to teach a student in a year, and you just kind of calculate what it would cost for one classroom.
I've seen this data before. It's insane.
Yes, and it's okay. Let's say an average of $11,000 a year to teach a student, and that's not even a full year. How many kids are in a classroom? Let's say 20, 25, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so what is that a year? So that's so that's $275,000 a year for one classroom. And you've seen a classroom, a public school classroom, where is that money going? The teacher makes $30,000. So
yeah, it's not like they're making the big bucks either.
Right. It's just completely outrageous. It doesn't make sense as a system, to be honest. It's not an efficient system at all.
The thing is, you can't, I don't want to get too off track here or get too political, but it's it's sad kind of the state of affairs we're in this country where you bring something like that up. And immediately, right, what you're saying is, pretty common sense, and, the numbers may not be 100% accurate, but, we can have a normal, rational conversation. And even if we come away with two different conclusions, it's not like we can't be friends or it gets ridiculous. But there's so many people, it's kind of why I hate bringing this shit up publicly, is you bring something like that up, and immediately someone goes into you're anti-education, you asshole. And it's what?
Yeah, it's very sad.
What? What happened to your mind that it just turned to mush?
Yep, and I learned about business and efficiency because I dropped out of school and working at small businesses. And that really taught me a lot. Seeing the trials and tribulations that a business owner has to deal with in New York. I worked at small mom and pop places. The restaurant I worked at, Restaurant Paradiso, which was the kind of the scuttlebutt of Albany. As you know, Albany is the capital. Now, being a small city as it is, it's a very political city because it's the capital of New York State. So you have a city of 80,000 people, and then you have all the legislators who have their houses there and they work there and they're there for the legislature and they're going out and they're spending money and the city kind of revolves around that. And that restaurant, all of those politicians love to go to. Everybody from the assembly loved to go there. And so I learned a lot there. Actually, I have some funny stories. Even I don't know if it's. I have an embarrassing story about Governor Pataki. I don't know if that's appropriate for here or not. But
if Governor Pataki would not be okay with it, if that's private, then do not bring it up on the show.
No. Okay. Well.
Okay.
But anyway, it's David Patterson. I'd see him in there. Spitzer would go in there. So that was that. Then I was 14, 15 years old, and to be honest, back then, now you're not going to make this kind of money in Albany, I think. But back then, I think pre-recession, upstate New York definitely wasn't as bad. But post-recession, it never recovered, I think.
Right. So you're working for these businesses, and then kind of what goes from there. Yeah.
So I worked there part time. Then I went over to this Italian deli, and I would work 6-7 days a week there. Sometimes 10, 12 hours a day. That's we won't go into there too much, but that's a little bit of a 15-year-old, 16-year-old shouldn't be working those many hours. So that's kind of how I got my educational start. And then, as you know, when I was 23, I opened a diner in Albany. And that was, I opened a diner in Albany and rented a commercial storefront. It was, it had a long history in Albany. It used to be a place called Johnny's Hot Dogs.
So what had you open a diner out of all businesses?
So I just kind of felt like I needed to be my own boss. I was working as a waiter at a restaurant by the airport, and I kind of felt I needed to take a jump. And that's, I think, the big thing in life, in business, is you cannot be afraid to take risk and to take a jump. And that was the first real jump I guess I took into business and kind of being my own boss. So I took that jump. I rented a place. It was ready to go because there was so much. All the equipment was there since places would rent it and then they would fail in 6 months.
Yeah. Hey, Alex, there's a little crinkling sound on your microphone.
I think that was my phone was going off. I'm going to vibrate.
It sounds like the mic is rubbing against your shirt or something like that.
Oh, that could be it. How's that? That should be better.
Okay. It wasn't too big of a deal, but I figured I'll say something.
Definitely. This is tell me if any of that. This is the.
No, you sound good. No, good.
So that's the big thing I kind of felt in business. You have to take a jump. You can't be afraid because the worst thing that happens is it doesn't work out. So I rented this place. And,
by the way, people don't get that. Sometimes they'll see you did this to this, but they don't see the 1,000 things you did that didn't work.
Absolutely, and that was part of a large part of my 20s was trying things and finding what works. And I remember one time somebody told me, he said that about me. He said, you always want to try things, and one day you're going to strike gold. But yes, this was the first kind of jump I took, and I opened this place. And to be honest, it is the worst place you could invest in to open a restaurant. It was, as you had went there, it's on a block of a commercial street that doesn't really get much foot traffic anymore.
It was all metered parking, right?
Yes, it was all metered parking, and it was an economically depressed neighborhood, to be polite. With
metered parking.
Yes, and the meters, and then the meters were horrible. First off, the meters in Albany are expensive, and nobody goes down there because if you can go to a mall or a shopping mall and park for free, why would you go somewhere where you have to pay a meter? Unless you're going downtown for a government, business or whatever. So yeah, it was a very bad place. And the first few months, I worked it myself. I was there all day, open to close. And it was very tough work, and I was barely making ends meet. And I kind of figured, well, first I went to the city, and I thought, let me talk to them. Of course, they're going to want to see me succeed. I'll ask them if maybe they can figure something out, like get rid of the meters, or maybe do the first 30 minutes is free or something. Of course, they didn't care. So then I was got a little I got a little like spiteful, I guess, and I said, okay, well, I'll show them. I'm going to open at 6 p.m. after the meters are not in effect, and then I'll close at 5 a.m. when they go back into effect.
Okay.
And
I didn't know this about you, but when you said that, I'm not shocked.
Yes, I was, and I did it I did it completely out of like spite to them, and I would even advertise it.
I mean,
like,
it sounds like a good
open,
business strategy, though, like, regardless of kind of spite or not. I mean, that's kind of a good idea.
It absolutely did, and it's funny because that was the reason I did it, like without thinking about the business ramifications completely, and it was a total hit, as you know. The restaurant over the next 2 to 3 years became a complete success. It was because here's a place. First off, I made everything from scratch. I was doing the fries we made in house. The burger.
Your food was. You remember when I came to visit you that time at your diner? Food was damn good.
Yeah, it was really good quality food. So here's a place where you can go.
And you made us a fresh donut too.
Right, we did homemade donuts made fresh. I did soft serve ice cream. We had, made my own wing sauce. The wings were famous, and of course, the most famous thing was a peanut butter bacon cheddar cheeseburger called the Stoner Burger.
I remember that. And
the Stoner Burger was famous. And this place became so popular because where else are you going to go within a 300-mile radius even at 4 a.m. to get like a burger like this, like a homemade, made-from-scratch burger with bread that was freshly baked from like a local bakery and homemade fries and – and
then let's be real. If you're high as fuck, you're gonna want to eat a donut after.
Absolutely, and then you get a hot donut made to order. Right. And we would have people like eventually, of course, word spreads, and with the internet, it makes things easy. So you see, oh, what's open now? Oh, this place. Oh, it has 5 stars. We'd have people that would drive up from New York City sometimes, literally. We had people that came from Boston to out of curiosity at night. Like they left the bar at like 1:30 or whatever, like, oh, we should go take a road trip, check this place out. Like it was, and the place would be packed. And
did they realize that once they had food, there was nowhere else to go? I mean, it's fucking Albany.
Yeah, right. And it's funny because here it is in Albany of all places, little Albany.
I mean, I was in school in Buffalo for 2 years, and I mean, at least there was some shit to do at that hour. But like, my brother went to Syracuse, and I guess the college part. I mean. Well, I don't know. Is the University of Albany, is there stuff around there?
No. I mean, there's like crappy pizza places.
Yeah, so you're fucked at that hour.
Yeah, and Albany was at that time. It was after Albany had even like they passed a lot of laws that in the past 10 years that really damaged the nightlife and business. Well, now it's like every year they do something, but now I just saw they stopped. The bars can't be open past 2 a.m. But a unique thing for New York, if people aren't from New York or listening, New York, the last call has always been 4 a.m. Albany, that was very good for the economy.
It's a shocker when people move from New York to Boston and they realize how early the bars close.
Yeah. But for Albany, that was a lifeline for a lot of people because you had a very nice nightlife in Albany. And, you have 20, 30,000 college students there. They would go downtown. They would spend money. It employed taxi drivers. It employed people who worked at late-night restaurants. And then they started to crack down on that and cut down last call. And you had a lot of places that relied on that night traffic because, to do business in New York is tough enough. And they took that out, and college students stopped going downtown, and a lot of places closed. So by the time I opened, I was kind of the only show in town. But yeah, so that was pretty much the first. And then I was so upset when I did that in the first part of it of running that restaurant. I ran for mayor with the Libertarian Party.
So tell us about that. So you decided to run for mayor of Albany.
Yes, I ran for mayor of Albany with the Libertarian Party.
So you didn't get any votes though, being a Libertarian, right?
They didn't even. They kicked me off the ballot. I couldn't get
I'm sorry to laugh, but come on, that's a little funny.
Yeah, they didn't want, and then and I was actually the first Libertarian candidate for office in Albany.
Did they look at you as a joke, or were they like annoyed by you, or like what was the deal? Did they just ignore you?
They just mainly ignore me. Well, Albany is a Democratic kind of machine.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Like, you don't even have a shot.
So, yeah, you don't even have a shot. Whoever wins the Democratic primary there. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking either. I was trying to do business in that city was very, very stressful. I was very angry. And then I also realized another thing. My father taught me a lot when I was younger. And one of the things he told me that always stuck with me too, which is another very important business lesson, is that people who find success cannot be afraid to move to new places. And that's like my grandparents. There was no success in Ireland and Malta, where my parents' come from. So they took the risk, and the immigrants that left were the ones who made money. And then my grandparents in New York City, when they felt there wasn't much opportunity in New York City after being there for a bit, they went upstate. It's people, let's say, not to trash on a economically depressed place, but just think of, I don't know, like Detroit or Appalachia.
Yeah.
Like if you stay in a place where there's no opportunity, you can't expect to, or it's going to be very difficult to move upward on the income.
A lot of people do, though. It's a psychological thing. They'll always have an excuse of why they have to stay.
Right, and you don't have to stay anywhere.
Of course not.
It's just scary to move. You're going to something.
Of course, it's all fear. That's all. It's the root of it. It's all fear, and then they have their excuse or justification of why. They're not going to be like, "Well, I'm too terrified to move." They'll always say, "Oh, well, I can't. I need to be with my family, or my friends are here, or I have a kid, and I have this relationship after my divorce." It's like, you know what? If you really want to do it, you can fucking make it work.
Yes, absolutely, and. So that's a big, very important thing. I think also that goes back to the school. I mean, it definitely kind of...
You can see why people think I'm a dick, though, right? I go up to someone and be like, yeah, you can fucking make it work. Stop using excuses. And then, they're not too happy that I say that, especially after a divorce or some shit like that.
Yeah, I bet. So you cannot be afraid.
You know what? I'm glad that... You know what's nice about talking to you is I can never out offend you.
No, yeah, man. I mean, I've heard it all, man, as you know. So let's see. I mean, let me see what else.
Yeah. So you're running this diner. What happened to the diner?
The diner was great. The first year was tough, but once I made that switch to the overnight, it was great. And it's funny because that place. You sold it, though, right? I did sell it.
Why?
Actually, it's kind of funny. 2 years in, I sold it because I was getting tired of it to somebody. He's a friend of mine. He's a local business guy in Albany. I'm not going to trash him, but it didn't work out for him, and he actually closed it in 90 days, and then I took it back over, and I did it for another year and a half, and then
sold it again, right?
I just shut it. I just shut it down. I didn't think anyone was going to have money to buy it in Albany, so I just shut it down and I left.
And then what did you do from there? Because I remember when we used to hang out, like you had an ATM business. You were doing Printly. What's the transition from diner to all that?
Well, let's go. I guess I can. So while I was running the diner and that was doing really well, another thing that I've learned in business is you have to constantly try to diversify because you never know when one market or one business you rely on is, it might not do well. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And the second thing I really got into and tried was ATMs. And that idea came because of what somebody who was very good, because I'd get some really interesting people as customers, of course, of all walks of life. But sometimes I'd get some really smart, successful people who would come in just because they're hungry at 3 a.m. Had a really smart guy that would come in sometimes. I loved talking to him and hearing his business advice. He gave me one of the best words of advice for business that I've ever had. He said that because I told him actually I was going to sell it, the diner, and the first time, and he said, "Okay, well, what do you want to do now?" And I said, "Oh, well, I don't know." And he said, "Okay, well, when I was 30, I sold my first business, and at that point, I said, okay, I can do anything I want. So what do I want to do?" And he said that he came up with 3 rules for what his next business should be.
Okay.
He said that whatever he does next, it has to, A, make money in his sleep, B, pay for all of his toys, everything he wants to do, and 3, he should be able to work on his business from anywhere in the world, anywhere he wants to be. And so that really kind of was light bulb that went off for me. And I realized that I would never do that running a diner.
Right.
So,
no kidding.
yeah. He never told me what he did, by the way, next. I wish that people, whenever they hear that story, they always ask me,
I was just going to ask you, what did he do?
And I don't know. But it seemed like it was working out really well for him.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
You didn't think to ask him?
No, I was trying to be polite. I don't want to interrupt him.
Yeah, it's funny.
And he was drunk, too. And he would come in. Actually, another funny thing about that diner, that location, there's 3 gay bars in that block. And so you'd get everybody from the gay bars would come in after like 3, 4 in the morning. And it was such a funny, fun crowd.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and then you'd have the taxi drivers come in. You'd have police would come in.
You know what, Alex? When I was actually in Buffalo, sometimes me and my friends, and it would be a bunch of us, like guys and girls. Occasionally, we'd actually go to the gay bar because the environment was way cooler than the typical clubs. It was way less. It was more classy.
Yes, well, Albany has a lot of gay bars. It's a very big LGBT population, there's 3 on that block. So I mean, it definitely was a fun place. And another funny thing, even with you'd also have like gangbangers and stuff would come in. So there was a really funny, people didn't mind me. They were cool with me. So I remember there was some guys who would come in. They came in and they were talking about a shooting or something. They shot somebody, and then 10 minutes later, police come in who had responded to the person getting shot and are talking about it, and the guys stopped talking about it, and here they are sitting next to each other at my diner at 4 a.m. It was definitely an interesting place, but that gives you kind of the environment that it was, being the only place in town open at 4 or 5 in the morning.
That's wild.
Yep. So I got the other thing after he told me that, I said, okay, well, I wanted an ATM for my place because here's a place where you have tons of foot traffic at late night. People always need ATMs; they need cash.
Right.
So I got one. I found a company, and
were you in all cash business too?
I was not.
Okay.
But after I got an ATM, I did it. I did switch to all cash, but I made the fee 99 cents. So it ended up being the cheapest ATM in the city. So, which also goes to another thing is you want to be, it's almost like I monopolized the ATM market from midnight to 5 a.m. Because then people would start hearing about that machine and they would come everywhere for it. Huh. So I got into that, and ATMs are interesting. The machines cost maybe $600, $700, $800 to, you get one as much as $2,000, $3,000. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You fill the machine with cash. You set your fee.
And there's obviously someone's filling that for you, right?
I filled it myself. You can fill it yourself. It's kind of you could go out, buy an ATM and fill it up and run it yourself. You just have to find a company to kind of process through.
Okay.
So
you weren't nervous about though, someone if they knew you were the guy filling it up, that you're gonna get robbed.
No, because let's say you fill it up before you open if it's low. And then after I did that, so I would start doing that. It wasn't bad. I was doing well. And you make money on the fees. Let's say you take out $100, and then the fee is $2, and then so there you go. You get $102 technically transferred to your account. So it's kind of automated. So I did that, and then I had friends who had shops and stuff, and because business owners all talk to each other, and so I kind of started pitching to them. Well, hey, let me throw an ATM in your store, and that's kind of how I got into that. And before you knew it, I had a little portfolio of ATMs.
But you couldn't do that though, being away, right? Because you were filling them up yourself.
Yeah, and you can get services. Another problem I had when I was doing the diner era was I wanted to do everything myself. So even with the diner, if you remember, I was always there myself.
Yep.
The ATMs, I like to fill up myself. Yeah, but you can get services.
Right, couldn't you scale up and then just have someone do it for you, and it ends up being worth the fee, right?
Yeah, if I kept getting into it and doing it, I could have.
Yeah.
I even, I put some in New Hampshire. Actually, I was doing pretty good in New Hampshire. But I started to realize, even with the ATMs. Here's the thing. So I had these two businesses. They were doing what I was doing. I'm doing the diner,
Yep.
late night crowd. I'm doing ATMs, and I started to feel like I'm working and trying to expand in markets that. You know what? I should mention the other thing, Printly, which I started, which was a print broker website. So somewhere in between all this, because as you know, I was making trips to New Hampshire and doing ATMs there, and I was helping with certain stuff out there.
Let's stick to the ATM thing, then I'll ask you more about Printly.
Okay, all right. So it kind of ties into it. Basically, so I'm working at these things, and I'm realizing that I'm trying to work on industries that I'm trying to work at a diner in a place that's economically dying. I felt like it's every year. I felt like more people left. There was less business. Another place, restaurant or business or bar or whatever, would close, and nothing would replace it. So here I am. Just why am I working in a dying market? And then for the ATMs, I kind of felt like, well, we're kind of going to a cashless society. So why am I spending all this money trying to buy these ATMs, and then you have to fix them? And then I remember, not to get into politics again, but that was when the first time I really kind of paid attention to Bernie Sanders, because he said that he wanted to set a cap on ATM fees. No ATM should be over like $3.
It was going to be a pain in the ass for you.
Yeah. So then I was kind of like, oh, and then the top thing was that they passed some kind of some regulation or law where the ATMs, they had to be like a certain year or upgraded, and to meet I can't remember, the chips, basically for the chips and cards. So it would have been basically all the ATMs I've been buying for like $600-700 were going to be obsolete. I'd have to buy like $2,000 ATMs.
Right.
So then at that point I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to get out of this. But yeah, so that's where I built it up though. I built a nice portfolio, and then I kind of just started selling my ATMs off, after that. So.
And would you sell, you would sell, it wouldn't just be the machine, but you would also be selling the machine in the certain location, right?
Right. And the locations are really what the value is. You get a good location.
What do those typically go for? What multiple of cash flow do you typically get for those?
I mean, it depends. I mean, you could sell one maybe for a couple thousand, or some might not be worth much of anything. You never know with a place. It's like hit or miss. You get a place and you're going to get no action at all, and then you get another one. I mean, there was, ironically, in Albany of all places, there was an ATM right in like a five corner intersection. It was probably the best ATM in the city, and that one did there was just insane amounts of traffic. It would get like hundreds of people a weekend would do it. It was just in a really good location and in a place where there's bars and everybody needed cash, and I don't know what the heck they're buying with the cash, but
yeah. So you sell the ATMs, and then tell us about Printly. What was that?
Yeah, so while I was doing that, so I started I had a print broker contract with a printing company, and so I set up kind of a printing kind of website.
What does that mean? You had a contract with a print company? So
basically, you get like wholesale rates where a printing company will give you, it's like any kind of broker deal. So you're basically a broker, so you get wholesale rates, and you can kind of sell retail.
And where did you get the idea to do that from?
I almost can't remember. Oh, okay. No, now I remember. It was a guy in Albany who just had this. He just introduced me to this printing owner, okay. Kind of. So, and he was a guy in local politics in Albany, really funny guy. He does I won't say his name, but he does he started a phrase like Troy crazy, about all the crazy things that happen in Troy. He's like a little celebrity in the area. So so I was doing that, and then as you know, because New Hampshire, a very, very political place.
Yep.
So I figured, okay, well, this is something I can kind of technically make money in my sleep, and I can work on it from anywhere. It's a website, and people can order on it. So I was doing that, and I was
And was that also and then what was the news site that you had?
Yes, so we started as a print site, and so we would do print orders, and people could order rack cards, business cards, whatever, and we're doing pretty good in New Hampshire. We actually did a presidential campaigns order for a primary candidate, amazingly, in the Republican Party. Okay. So I built a little reputation in New Hampshire for being a go-to guy for printing products, as you know. I think so. If you remember, or who was the lady somebody, I can't remember, some restaurant owner I was even doing for in New Hampshire. But anyway,
yeah.
So doing that, and then we started like a blog, like a news blog on the side to kind of like, since our clients were business and politics, political clients, we figured, okay, let's do like a blog on business and politics. And a friend of mine who I ended up partnering with, he helped me build the website first. We started this blog, and we would do like news. He would write articles, I would write articles, and eventually the blog started to take off.
What do you attribute that to? Because people start blogs all the time. I mean, you were getting a lot of traffic.
Well, we tried to remain neutral at first, and I was always very libertarian, and our clients were very libertarian. So I tried to stay with the libertarian audience. And meanwhile, I'm running all this other stuff, so I'm really busy. But he kind of took it over almost he was putting out he liked Trump, and he was a Trump supporter before there were Trump supporters. It was like 2014 or something. Like I didn't even think he was going to run then. But he starts putting out Trump stuff, and nobody was really writing about pro-Trump news, So he would write that out, and that would get tons of traffic. It would be a total hit. And that's kind of what caused it to take off. Here is a blog that's kind of given audience to Trump supporters who don't really have an outlet to go to. Because even Fox News wasn't really doing that. So, yeah, that's kind of what caused it to take off.
Interesting. And then Trump retweeted something that you guys had posted, right? It was all kind of a controversial thing?
Yeah, so
what was this about?
Yeah, so that happened a little on – should we jump into when I closed the diner, or should we go into more of the print later? But basically, yeah. So in between all this, I'm getting tired of the shop, the running the shop and doing all this. And I had my sister and brother-in-law invited me for a job opportunity out in Colorado. And I had visited Colorado briefly a year before, and I felt, okay, well, I remembered my father had said, you got to be, take jumps to try new places. So I did that. I just closed up. I got sick of it, and I closed up the diner, and I left New York for good. And I had the blog going, and it was just starting at this time, and it was starting to do well. So I was like, let me try out Colorado and do this. And I had some money from the diner. And so, and then right around this time, the blog started to take off. And because, again, so here's a media kind of outlet that is the only thing doing positive Trump news. And so, of course, that's going to get to Trump, because how much stuff does he have to how much positive media stories does he have? So he would start to retweet our stuff, our articles. And then it really took off. But then you had like a media spotlight on us because they're like, oh, what is this? He's retweeting these articles. And they would say it's fake news. I, as you know, will argue it. I don't think it's fake news, but because we never made anything up. But we would put slants on things.
So why would they call you fake news?
So, I'll give you the biggest example was, he retweeted an article that got a lot of publicity because we were on ABC, Washington Post wrote about it. And this article, this gives you an example of kind of what we did. This article was like, Trump pressures Ford to relocate their factories from Mexico back to the U.S., something like that. And that was true that Ford was moving their factories back to the U.S. And, can you say that Trump is the reason? I mean, you can't say he's not the reason. He would attack them. So, but to them,
but to be fair, your article was saying that the reason was he pressured. Right? I mean, you're implying that.
Right, and that we say that, and we would do from a conservative standpoint almost what the media does, like CNN would do from a liberal standpoint.
I think everyone. So I think everyone does it, but
yes, everyone does.
But you can agree though, like that's a little like what you did was disingenuous, right?
I don't think.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
I don't think it's this. I think it's more just slanted. I mean, the thing is that people don't want unbiased news. Everybody has a bias, confirmation bias. Like you don't. That's why you don't have media that is unbiased.
No, I get it. But let me ask you just straightforward, Alex, straightforward question.
Yes.
So you say that they're moving to Detroit because Trump pressure. Did you have any evidence that Trump pressured them, or are you just saying that?
And then you go on, and then with the article, like I forget what we talked about, but something low, and so Trump's been hammering them, and now they are moving back to the U.S. And Trump claimed the success. So I mean, I could probably pull up CNN and show you 50 articles that are. The same kind of bias or slant.
Oh, sure. No, Alex,
right.
Trust me. But they're not here, so I can't address that.
Right. It's not neutral, but it is. I mean, that's what it is.
Sure.
I wouldn't say it's fake news. I would say it's biased news. But yeah, the media did not like that, and that's kind of weak. However,
I'm going to drop it, but some people hear that and say you're just dealing with semantics.
Right. I mean, that's what it is. But what is media? It's our news. It's all semantics. I got it. But there you go. I went on the CNN, the top.
It's kind of hilarious. Regardless, though, it's kind of hilarious that Trump retweets something and there's a whole hysteria at it. Because
we did it almost to kind of mock the media too, because I mean we were also watching like okay. So I'll give you an example.
Alex, I'm sorry to almost mock.
Yes.
You are a professional troll, my friend. You did it to mock them.
Let me give you an example. So I remember, and I didn't even support Trump until the last minute, but I'll give you an example. I remember I was watching a speech of Trump did, and he was giving a speech, and there was a baby next. There's a woman with a baby next to him, and the baby starts crying.
Okay.
And she's like going to step out, and he's like, oh no, you don't have to leave. And then she's like, she's going to keep walking out or something, and he's like, all right, no, get out of here, as a joke. He's joking though. He's from New York. He has that humor, that sense of the sarcasm. Then what's the front page story? Trump kicks out woman with crying baby from his rally.
I remember that.
You remember that? That was not true. That wasn't what happened. So the media would do things like that every single day. That is fake news. So we kind of said we would be a little outraged with that, and this is why you had all these pro-Trump online media like websites that would pop up like nuts, because the media created that because they decided they didn't want to be unbiased. They wanted to write stories like that.
So you were pushing back a lot.
Exactly, and that's why those things took off, because you'd go to a Trump rally and then you would see one thing and then you see another thing on the news, and so how are you going to feel?
Hold on. News article just in. Alex Portelli is doing a podcast syndicate to justify fake news.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? That would be the headline.
Yeah, for real. I mean, well, even actually, it's funny. Then, remember Washington Post and did a big story on it. But
the Portelli news podcast tour.
Yeah. So that's I guess we started that because sometimes things would get like. Of course, some things are a little ridiculous. You see articles on Facebook, and I'm sure, like, how does somebody share that and believe that?
I know. So then, what did you guys peak at in terms of like monthly hits? You were getting like quite a bit of traffic.
We did a couple million people a month in 2016.
And then were you monetizing it through like ad revenue? Was that the model?
Yes, and we did monetize it. You do monetize it.
Why did you stop that? I mean, you shut that down, right?
Yeah, we shut it down after Trump won.
Why?
And because then actually what happened after he won, ironically, our website showed up at the top of Google News for election, when people Googled election results under news. And we had an article about Trump winning, came up first, and then we had something about I don't know, like somebody wrote something about, because we had some writers, and Somebody wrote something about he would have won the electoral vote or something without illegal if the illegals didn't vote or something. And that was the first thing that people would see. And so the media wrote about that. They're like, why is this showing up? Google has fake news showing up on their news section. And so that they started well, I guess, they were attacking Facebook and Google. So suddenly, I guess Facebook kind of must have done something, because then our articles would just were not getting viewed. They pretty much shadow banned us.
Okay.
And that really kind of killed it.
So you got fucked.
Right, exactly. They just totally. So we weren't able to really get any viewers anymore, and we said screw this. So that was the.
So you said screw this, and then was the Colorado stuff? Was that next?
No, this was all happening.
Oh, it was all happening at the same time.
Well, I mean, I moved to Colorado in 2015. So I was kind of
keep up with the amount of stuff you do.
Yeah, man. And now I'm in Vegas.
So tell us about Colorado. So you moved to Colorado.
Went out to Colorado. Yeah, but I tell you, man, I do have a crazy story. Went out to Colorado. Kind of had their website. Was going to check out this job. Job turned out to be it was like a sales job or something. I was supposed to like manage some office for like security alarm systems or whatever. It turned out to be like a total nothing was here. There was like no office. There was no anything. It was like
the total scam.
So I walked. I just kind of it was almost a scam. It was like a very that was an interesting industry, the home security systems. You have all these like pop-up companies that kind of basically go door to door. They get salespeople and they go door to door, and those kind of pyramid scheme commission-based things where you sell people 5-year contracts on securities. And this is definitely the worst job I have ever done and the worst job I ever saw. And then people, of course, are being very shady about it. And then on top of it, these companies don't even handle the security. Then they basically resell them to an actual like ADT or some shady company that actually does the monitoring. So they're always lying and getting people to just try to sign up for these things under false pretenses, and very bad industry. So after I was out here for a month and I'm trying to kind of make this work, but this company was just totally these guys who had this were in over their head and kind of scammy. So I said, okay, I'm going to walk away from this. And unfortunately, I brought some people out. A lot of people kind of liked me, and I brought some people out to help me with this. And I was kind of thinking, geez, why the heck did I come out here? I gave up my diner. I had this nice business and security and all that, and now I'm out here. And I even had rented an apartment, a nice apartment, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do now? And my friend was like, oh, well, he's like one of the people that came out with me. This guy, Scott, he's really good. And I'd met him in New Hampshire, actually. But he's like, oh, well, you should do Airbnb. And I'm like, Airbnb? What's that? And he's like, oh, well, here, I'll show you. And he showed me Airbnb. And this was before, I guess, Airbnb was well known. But I don't know were you familiar with Airbnb in 2015 or?
I think so, yeah.
Barely, right? Now it's definitely more of like a mainstream. Yeah. You see it in the news a lot. But yeah, so I was like, okay, let me try this. I put my couch up. I made a listing for the couch in my apartment. I put it up, and it was booked in 10 minutes, $25 or something. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I can make money on this. And I just kind of Airbnb'd the heck out of my apartment. I Airbnb'd the rooms. I just kind of slept on the couch. I Airbnb'd the couch. I would just, it was actually kind of, because I was kind of in a jam out there. And then the apartment found out, and they were like, they're like, okay, well, you got to stop. We're going to evict you. I said, or you got to leave or we'll evict you. And I'm like, all right, I'll leave. So I packed up in like 3 days, and I rented like 3 more apartments. And we won't go into too much details, but I mean, that's basically how I kind of got started in that. And then eventually I kind of figured out, well, let me kind of legitimize a bit. And I would find people who wanted to rent their place. And I'd say, well, let me just Airbnb it for you. It's a lot more money and you don't have to worry about it. And so I started managing properties. And then I started to buy properties over the next 2 or 3 years. And it was a very, very good industry to get into at the time in Denver. And in Colorado at the time was kind of like the Wild West of it, like everywhere, I guess, where you didn't really have anyone regulate an Airbnb. So you're really able to just kind of do it. And so that really is what I kind of how I got into property, and I built up a portfolio of 8 or 9 properties, and that's kind of what I do today, mainly aside from online.
And is it mainly Airbnb?
Yeah, well now I've had to sell my Denver properties because since then they've passed some really strict laws where they've actually arrested people for felonies.
Jesus.
Yeah, so it's gotten really nuts. And so I've pretty much sold my Denver portfolio, and I have a few condos I rent, but it's really a shame though, because it makes me kind of sad, because here was something where, okay, well, I didn't really make too much from the diner, and here I am, I'm stuck out here. I don't really know what the heck I'm going to do. I have a 9th grade diploma, and here's an outlet where I can use my talent to make money. And in just 4 years, I put together like a portfolio of like $2 million almost in properties. Like, it's insane. I mean, I have mortgages, but it's just really incredible, I think. And nobody can really do that again, at least not there. Right, because now it's banned. Before, they didn't regulate it. So it's almost like they killed another way for somebody to kind of accumulate wealth. So that's too bad. But I did at least built up kind of my my portfolio that I have today. So
yeah, cool. There's some things where if it's working really well, somebody just don't talk about it until you accumulate, until you exploit that market. Yeah, for real. And I'm serious. It's like,
no, absolutely.
people get envious.
Yeah, they do for sure. It's very sad. But yeah, and so I like property. That's how I got into property. Now I've kind of looking into commercial properties or mixed use properties where you can kind of get a license for like a motel or
and this is in Vegas?
Everywhere. I mean, I like Vegas.
What brought you out there?
I bought a house out here because one, I'm sick of winter, and two, I think that there is good property opportunities out here. The Airbnb, they're actually really, really strict. But actually, you could do a podcast on Airbnb, and I bet you'd get so many people who would listen, because people are really curious about the rules and laws and where they can do it and where they can't as an investment. Because now, 5 years ago, you could pretty much just do it anywhere. Now, though, jurisdictions are starting to, figure out about this and pass laws. So Denver, you cannot do it. Basically, the Denver law now is, which they just recently passed, you can't do it as an investment. You have to live there as your primary residence, and you can only have one listing. So you're not really going to make money on it. It's really for like a retired couple and so that's all. And people are getting in trouble all the time. Ironically,
what's the point? Like, what's the point of that? What's the reasoning behind doing that?
Well, there's some socialist that came to office that said flat out in city meetings, that people shouldn't be able to make money on this, exploiting people who, there's home crises or whatever. But yeah, okay. I mean, so she's a nut, Shidabaka or whatever her name is. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be hotel industry's lobby in a lot of places. There's a lot of misguided. Let's say you get 1% of Airbnbs. I mean, millions of people use Airbnb, but of course, like anything, I mean, you could have an apartment where you rent it to somebody and they're bad tenants. You're going to have Airbnb guests who are sometimes bad. So you get one bad publicity incident, and they feel like they have to regulate the whole industry. But yeah, it definitely takes away an income stream for a lot of people who are trying to, they want to be self-employed or they want to get in the property, and so it's sad. But yeah, so Denver, no go. And the big thing there was that they they'll arrest people if they get a license. And now what they do is well, first off, they require people to get a license and where it has to be a primary residence. And a lot of hosts were just getting the license, but wasn't their primary residence. And so what they would do is they have people sign affidavits swearing that it's your primary residence. And So people, I guess they would think, and it was like immigration law. An immigration lawyer was arrested, and a realtor couple were arrested. But they would sign these affidavits, not thinking anything of it, and then the city would actually investigate. And the city of Denver actually has like law enforcement, police, detectives would do like a review and do an investigation to see if you lie on the affidavit. As if they don't have better stuff to do. But so then what happened was they would do these.
Well, Alex, you know what though? I'm sure you know this, and I'm saying this to you right now as a fellow business owner as well. You know, there's laws that you and I are not going to like, but you got to follow them. And there's, look,
right.
I'm in the investment management. I'm in the investment management, investment management
Right.
industry, and there's a document that I have to give out to everyone, and. Do I personally think it's a load of bullshit? Yeah, I kind of do. Right. But you know what, though? My regulator, I'm regulated by. I'm speaking. I'm regulated by the state of New Hampshire, and I'm also regulated by the state of Pennsylvania. And you know what? I will do whatever the hell I want. I don't want to get in trouble. And there's rules that I follow, whether I like them or not, because I want to be in business. And if it means that there's some rules that like don't really love, you know what? It's not gonna. It's not. So I'll figure out a way to make it work, and I think you kind of have to just roll with it.
Yeah, and that goes into another thing with business that I've learned early is one, pay your taxes. Don't try to scam them on your taxes, and two, it's follow the law, because at the end of the day, it's not worth it. So that's why I personally, again, I bailed out at Denver. I started selling my portfolio. So that's what happened there. With Vegas is interesting because the city of Vegas itself is very small. Most of it is unincorporated Clark County. And Clark County, which the casinos and the hotels pretty much run, you can't get a license even for your primary. It's banned outright. So you can't Airbnb legally in the probably 3/4 of the city of Las Vegas, which is unincorporated. Okay. There is, though, North Las Vegas and Henderson you can as an investment. You can buy a property and Airbnb it, and you just get like a $500 a year fee. And Airbnb it. So that's really and this also goes back to the thing about doing a podcast on Airbnbs. I've even kind of thought of creating some kind of outlet where people can kind of see what the laws are in different jurisdictions, because I've studied it a ton. So even in Colorado, I probably know the rules for every town and municipality in Colorado. And some communities embrace it, and some communities they don't want investments, short-term rentals for investments. Mm-hmm. So, but
interesting. So the properties that you have right now, they're non-Airbnb. Is that the deal, or?
Yeah. I mean, I have a few places I rent in Denver, and then I have now one thing. This is trying to navigate the ambiguity of short-term rental rules. So I bought one property in a county where a municipality outside Denver where it's actually a really nice property, really big, right by the Denver airport, and they don't have Airbnb rules here. And I had spoken to the the county planner before purchasing this property, and that's kind of, again, this is what. Before there were rules, you could be a maniac, and I was a maniac. But now, as I've matured into it,
you're a maniac at heart.
Yeah. So, but now it's like I'm trying to navigate this. So that's what I'm kind of specializing in now. So I found this place where so here they have no rules, and they basically, since they don't regulate it, you can Airbnb. They don't care. And so I bought this property, and I started Airbnb in it, and it actually has no neighbors across the street. I have a live-in kind of manager. It's a big property. It has a room, and he kind of manages it, make sure everything is quiet. And it's doing well. But somebody who lives, I guess, like somewhere in the neighborhood, noticed there was different cars there every week. So they complained, and they kept complaining, and now the county basically came and said, okay, well, look, this person's really upset. This is going on. So you got to have a change of use permit now. Which before that, this wasn't even a thing. They did, the county planner told me, oh, no, you don't have to. But this is kind of what you have to deal with in this industry. So even if you think the rules are clear, they're black and white, they're not. So now I stopped Airbnb in there, and now I have a real estate lawyer I use is good at this stuff, and now we're going through like a change of use permit. So I guess you have a white area where it's legal as an investment opportunity. You have a gray area where there's no rules, and then you have a black area where it's totally illegal. So I would recommend as an investor, you really just want to find the white areas where they've passed some kind of law that legalizes short-term renting as an investment. And if you can find that, you can find a good place. Airbnb is a great business to be in.
You think having a real estate lawyer, hiring one to get involved in this industry is worth the money?
No, I just don't like the. Yeah, I mean,
I was genuinely curious. I didn't know either way.
Yeah, I don't think you personally need. He helped me with an eviction once. He was really good. That's also why I Airbnb is nice as well if you like property, because if a person they just want a place to sleep, and if a guest is unruly. And I've done this before. You can call the police, and you can say, "Look, this Airbnb guest has to leave. They're acting whatever." Okay, the police take them out. But I've rented, and I've done with renters as well. And I had to do an eviction. I used this guy, and he was phenomenal. So I like him, and he doesn't charge much. But you don't need one. No, you don't need a real estate lawyer at all to do it. I just felt to be safe, since it's kind of a gray area, and with this, I felt that he should do the application to kind of show them, well, look, be fair, I guess.
Right.
So
now you're working on a new project now, right?
Yeah. So
can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So
cool.
it's I have a website. So I did Printly. We actually relaunched Printly, and it's been doing really well.
Oh, cool.
And over the last few years, since I've gotten the Airbnb, I've been working on a web project called Print Page, which is follow that print kind of.
Yeah.
Ever. But basically, it's like a peer-to-peer marketplace where everything is kind of all in one. So I did that largely because of my dissatisfaction with Airbnb over certain things, and dissatisfaction with other Lyft and Uber.
When you say a peer-to-peer marketplace, what exactly are you?
Basically, where you can be you as a user can offer a good or service that you monetize and can get paid for to another user, and it's basically the platform. And you go to Uber for your rides, is peer-to-peer. You go to Airbnb for home shares, Grubhub for food. Those are all kind of
is it other stuff too? Like say, you want to hire a handyman? Can you do it on there? Or?
Right. So we're basically doing all. You have services, B&Bs, ride shares, for sale listing online for sale items, and we're going to do it at a much lower rate. So Airbnb will take probably between the host and guest 20-25%. Uber takes 20-25%, et cetera. And I have experience with all these things because, I dealt with Grubhub with a restaurant, Airbnb I deal with. We're going to take only like 3%. So we want to provide a better service for people, and that's not price gouging them. So vendors, because a lot of people rely on these things, so they can keep more of their money.
And have you launched this yet, or?
No, well, I've been running it beta. That's the nice thing about if you Airbnb, you can kind of practice. You have a customer base that you can kind of get firsthand feedback on, and that's how I kind of practiced. Had the beta version tested, and I kind of ran it on that scale. But we're almost done, and should be launching it this probably the spring for sure in the next month or two. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Once you launch and you have a few months going, we should come back on the show and talk to us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I can definitely do that. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely very exciting. Website, anything online, apps, web development, I think is solid to get into. I mean, well, it's I guess it's not solid, it's risky, but it's definitely worth. You got to keep. This goes back to what I was saying, where you have to just try things. So that's kind of the latest thing I'm trying.
How do you compete though with some of these other businesses that just specialize in ride sharing or just specialize in Airbnb stuff or Angie's List with services? How are you going to compete with that?
It has to be smoother. Well, one, if it's cheaper, people will use it. If you can save money, if people can save money and the product is better than the competitor, then I think you'll have no problem with business.
How do you make it cheaper? Like, so Uber doesn't make money right now, right? Lyft doesn't make money. How do you make it cheaper?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, Amazon didn't make money for the first how long? I mean, I guess technically It's all.
No, I wasn't saying that to put it down at all. I was just curious about the model.
For sure. I mean, I think that you can definitely make money. I mean, even if you're not technically, you'll generate revenue. I think that's the big thing. Is
you'll need scale to have a chance of profit, right?
Right. Well, like you look at like Booking.com is another one. Mm-hmm. So they do like hotels.
Yeah.
Their revenue is like $36 million a day or something insane. Airbnb does billions. Uber even does, even if they're not profitable yet, they do billions.
You'll need outside capital, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you probably would, right, for a project like this. I mean, amazingly, it's here's what I've learned too about investors.
You're so casual about this. It's funny.
Yeah, man. Well, it's like, I self-financed this crazy website, this project, and it's like you want investors investors don't want to deal with you when you need them, and then the investors will all be there when you don't need them anymore, almost.
Yep.
But you definitely, if you want to get investors, you have to have something to show. So right now, I'm kind of focused on getting the project finished. We have users, amazingly, but getting like a nice user base. And then I imagine that I might be in a position, I guess, to kind of go to investors. But you would probably know that more than me, I think.
Probably.
Yeah. But yeah, that's. Yeah, I guess I am really casual about it.
It's funny. Since I've known you, everything you've done, you've been very casual. But I'm just doing some ATMs. I'm done with the ATMs. I'm just gonna go to Colorado. Whatever.
Yeah, just keep jumping and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, amazingly though, I mean, from my Airbnb and revenue or business and whatnot. The first year, kind of started testing it, and it did like over 100,000 in revenue.
Yeah, that's great. You're a testament that 90% of business is literally, or in life really, is just showing up. Like you see all these people who are like really smart and they've read every fucking book in the world, but like, what have they actually done?
Right.
They're like, you've already created like 9 businesses and they're just they're still thinking about their first one. Well, maybe I'll be ready soon.
Yeah, man. I try things and I get kind of tired of it, I guess. Or I think, I want to try something better.
You have a fucking 9th grade education, but all you do is just do action. If you fuck up a bunch and you still make it work, like you've already accomplished way more than like the really brilliant guy who has a PhD in rocket fucking science or whatever, but they're still thinking about it.
Yeah, well, here's what I kind of realized with property is, okay, you can...
And they're in their comfortable job, and they're in their really shitty relationship with a wife they don't like, and like all this stuff, right? And they're just thinking about, well, one day when it's the right time, then I'll leave this shitty life behind, and you get what I'm saying, though. It's just like they fucking romanticize every. I know. I think they romanticize everything, and then they're like, oh, I'm on my deathbed now. Fuck.
Right. Well, even with Colorado, Colorado, I feel like, another thing, a big thing, we didn't really get into it, but the main reason I kind of decided to kind of bail out of Colorado and I started selling my stuff is I think that Colorado is in a big bubble that is going to burst.
Why do you think it's in a bubble? What are you looking at?
Because they
is there like an analysis behind this, or is this just like your hunch?
It's
because your hunch is typically pretty good, but I just want to know if this is
just
like
a
hunch.
Okay. And
had a feeling.
And it has kind of started to materialize over the last 6 months. Actually, the December was dismal for the housing market there.
Yep.
It's kind of, but basically, they were the first state to legalize marijuana, if you remember. I do. Or one of the first states, or the second state, or whatever, caused a huge kind of green rush. And did
that help your business, by the way? That whole green rush.
It made my business. I mean, I pretty much rode the green wave, I guess you could say.
You called that because I remember when you moved and you were like, "Yeah, I'm going to take advantage of all these people coming in for marijuana."
Yes, I definitely saw opportunity there.
You nailed that.
Yeah, no, I did for sure. I realized it was a good place to be, and that's kind of why decided to take the risk.
And what are you seeing now? It's just like everyone now wants to be in it, and it's this kind of like crowded space.
Here's what happened: is everybody wanted to move there. Huge housing shortage there. Airbnb had nothing to do with that. A huge housing shortage. You had all these people suddenly overnight want to move to Colorado, and we're moving to Colorado. Economic boom from legalizing weed. And so, of course, the one problem is, where are all these people supposed to live? So there was a housing shortage, and they, like any boom. So suddenly you have a boom in construction, lots of houses being built. I remember when I moved out there in 2015, you drive to the airport from the city of Denver, and there would be nothing almost. Now you drive out there is thousands upon thousands of houses. There's probably definitely over 10,000 houses. I remember there's one community, it's like 8,000 homes they just built out of nowhere. So they just went on a huge building spree. Every year they're dropping like 80,000 newly built homes or units to the market. Except now, as you know, like how many states have legalized weed now? A ton. So the mass exodus to Colorado has pretty much trickled off. People are not going to Colorado anymore. But you still have all these houses that are popping on the market that construction began 18 months ago. So, like I think it's almost at the point where you're going to have these houses continue to sit. And actually you will see it too. If you go to Realtor or Zillow, what do you see? You see in Denver price drops now, where you never saw price drops 2 years ago. Everything is getting price dropped. It's sitting on the market. So I think that they are at the edge of a big problem they're going to see.
Interesting.
Yeah. It is.
Is there anything you think I've missed, or anything else you want me to talk about? Cool, interesting stories, or you think we've covered most of it?
Covered most. I mean, I could always come back and another time go into other stuff. I don't know if there's anything related to what we hit off.
Well, let me tell you when you start this company, when it gets out of beta and you've been doing this for a little bit, come back on and tell us about, what's going on.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually, for sure. And we'll see how it's doing.
Yeah, I wish you the best.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And stay being a maniac.
Yeah, for real, man. That's it.
Yeah.
YOLO.
I hope not too YOLO, because you have a business to run, but I get what you're saying. That's... All right, man. Well, Alex, it was a pleasure to have you on.
Cool, man. Thanks.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Intelligent Investing Podcast with Eric Schleien. If you'd like to connect with Eric for questions, comments, feedback, ideas, or to inquire about being on the show, please contact Eric at intelligentinvesting@gmail.com. So, in the words of Charlie Munger, I have nothing to add.